So on to our final speaker of the evening. It's my pleasure to introduce Emily Parker, who's Director of Inside Sales at Insider. So Emily has had a career starting as an SDR, worked at a couple of different companies before moving into management and scaling teams across Europe. And she's going to be talking to us about harnessing zero optionality. Here we go.
Thank you. Okay, so harnessing zero optionality might sound like, what the heck is that going to be about? I've never heard anything like that before. So, in a nutshell, zero optionality is about having a relentless focus and determination towards a goal. Now, I feel a little bit like Patrick might have teed me up well here because he's been talking about relentlessness for the last 7 minutes, pretty much. And that's all about what I'm going to talk about today. So, my CEO has been traveling around with the world talking about zero optionality, about driving yourself to a point where you reach almost like a paranoia or an obsession around the goal that you're working towards. And for her, it's really focused around Insider and how she can drive the business to be as successful as it possibly can be. But for me, I think it's more around professional and personal, and I want to find a way to harness zero optionality in everything that I do. So I want to be relentless about my relationship. I want to be obsessed with maintaining a work-life balance. And obviously, I want to be determined towards my career goals too, don't we all? I used to have this CRO who would wander through the office and he would say, like, hey, morning everyone, don't forget the excuses department is closed today. And that was his way of trying to just get us into that accountability mindset and get us motivated. I'm not going to say that one simple sentence like that at the beginning of your day is going to get you into a state of paranoia around your goals. That would be a bit too easy. So I'm going to dig into a little bit of academia to help us get there. I studied my dissertation on intrinsic motivation, and I know I've not got very long, so I'm not going to recite my whole dissertation right now. We'd be here all night long. So I'm just going to do a quick whistle-stop tour on some of the theories in it. So intrinsic motivation, if you don't know what it is motivation that comes from within yourself. It's about being just motivated by the actual activity that you're doing, motivated by the sheer joy of what you're doing, which sounds like Sean's got for gamification. So there's a theory within intrinsic motivation called self-determination theory, and that's basically the idea that intrinsic motivation is fueled by 3 main things: accountability, competence, and relatedness. So it's about having control over your actions, that's your accountability, feeling competent, feeling capable and skilled when you're doing it, that's your competence, and then also being connected to others while you're doing it. So if you're in the room now, you're connecting with other people, that's brilliant, and that's your relatedness. And if you can use that self-determination theory to drive your intrinsic motivation, actually it will help you become successful, but it will also have a bit of a change of your actual hormones within your body, and I'm going to dig into that right now. So there've been studies done on what actually happens when you drive your own motivation, when you choose to do something for yourself rather than when you get kind of coerced into doing something, so they say. Now, I'm going to level with you, most of the studies are on rats, and I'm going to emphasize rats because when I first told James this, he thought I said reps, and then he thought that I was forcing my reps to do exercise, which I'm not doing. So 2 groups of rats. One group gets to choose whenever they want to do exercise on a hamster wheel. Thank you, Patrick. And then the other group of rats absolutely forced to join in whenever the first group are choosing to do their own exercise. So both groups end up doing an equal amount of exercise, but the rats that had no choice whether to do their exercise, they actually saw a big increase in cortisol levels, that's your stress hormone, whereas the rats who got to choose when they did their exercise, absolutely no increase in cortisol, and actually they had an increase in dopamine levels. So that's your happy hormone, that's like those nice bubbly feelings that you get. Maybe dopamine is what I'm feeling right now, or it could be the wine I drank earlier, I'm not sure yet. But effectively, you can change your chemical makeup of your system just by like self-motivating and pushing yourself to do something. So when we think about that concept in our personal lives, it makes a lot of sense. Intrinsic motivation is really clear, really painfully obvious. Would you be in a relationship that you fundamentally hated just because you might one day get promoted to marriage or like graduate to parenthood? Absolutely not. You probably wouldn't even want the promotion anyway. But we're in those relationships fundamentally to be satisfied within them. And that's what we need to try and find within our professional lives as well. How can you be satisfied, happy, with the job that you're in before you then go for that promotion, following all of Nia's steps. So sometimes it can be really hard to think about that shift because we're talking here about getting into a state of like obsession around your goal. But how can you be obsessed with something if you don't necessarily know what that something is? And there'll be some people in the room who don't know what their next step is, what their career goals are. And actually, I've been thinking a lot recently about what having your career goals in mind can do for you and your success. I did 25 interviews with SDRs last week because I'm hiring. So I'm hiring. So if anyone wants a job, I'm here. And on those interviews, loads of people asked me a very similar question. Of the people I've managed before who've become successful, what did they have in common? And I wanted to make sure that I was maybe applying a bit of this zero optionality myself and not just kind of make it up. And so I went back, looked through all the SDRs that I've led before, looked at where they are now, looked at the ones who've been promoted again. One of them's a VP of sales in 4 years. Wild. Good for him. But basically, one thing that they had in common is on the day that they interviewed me, they could tell me exactly what they wanted to achieve, and they gave me a really personal and authentic reason why they wanted to achieve it. And that is so valuable and so important, and literally they were just relentless about it. It didn't matter whether the training was slightly down or we didn't have budget to go and do this external thing. They made sure it happened for themselves. And they have been the most successful now. And they didn't know it at the time, and I didn't know it at the time because I'd never heard of the concept, but all of them were harnessing zero optionality already, and they've gone on to be really successful. Now, if you are one of the people who sat here and you don't know what you want to do, don't panic, but you can still make the most of this concept of zero optionality. But your action to take away is to use it to find out what your goal is and what you want to achieve. So have the conversations that you need to have with yourself and also with other people to work out what that is and be relentlessly focused on determining what it is. Because when you do, you'll unlock a whole new level of dedication that you didn't really know was going to be possible for you. And then if you are one of the people who does know what they want to do, great. If you're not ready to jump straight in, just think to yourself, what needs to change in my professional and personal life to make me throw myself into it? And yeah, that is all I have to say. Thank you so much.